having me
again.
Great to see you guys.
Yeah, not many people join us in our underground bunker in
34 floors beneath the Empire State Building.
Yeah, that's right. Excuse me. Well, yeah. So you're here because a new report has come out about some crazy things the CCP is doing to Shen Yun.
Yes,
and there's been some updates. So let's get into that. Well, first of all, you're the executive director of the Falun Dafa Information Center. What's the connection between that and Shen Yun?
So Shen Yun, the performing arts company, was essentially founded by Falun Gong practitioners. It's run primarily by Falun Gong practitioners. And so as part of the sort of transnational repression campaign that the CCP unleashes on Falun Gong globally, Shen Yun is kind of a key part of that. And so as part of our coverage of what they're doing to silence Falun Gong around the world, we decided to do a deep dive on Shen Yun because that's clearly one of their main targets now in trying to silence what they would say are Falun Gong voices of, talking about what's happening in China and things of that nature. Yeah.
I mean, excuse me. I think I have something in my throat. I guess what I really find interesting about Shen Yun is, sorry, excuse me. Oh my God! Oh, Shen Yun, China before communism. You get your ads everywhere. How do you?
That whole thing was a setup for this, Chris.
Okay, I'm sorry. Was the gag that it came out of your throat?
They get their ads everywhere.
In fairness, I was actually going to do a bit where I put a billboard up in our skyscraper set in the back, as a little subtle thing, but I didn't think it'd be big enough to see. And we were kind of thinking on the same.
How long have you been planning that?
Years.
Anderson, you'll have to do some, magic to make that look better, right? No.
I think it was flawless. But this is interesting. I think what most people think of when they think of Shen Yun is just ads everywhere. It's become somewhat of a meme.
I saw the meme where the Mars rover found a Shen Yun billboard. Did you see that one a few years ago?
That was fake. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible how much effort is being put into getting this message out for a Chinese song and dance show.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of the folks that, not just Shen Yun, but sort of Falun Dafa, Falun Gong associations around the world, I think there's a real recognition that this is important on a broader sort of cultural context because, for the last 70 years, they've been trying to totally destroy Chinese culture. This is a way to not only sort of make sure that doesn't die out, but hey, let's share it with the world in kind of an interesting, captivating way. And so I think it's a lot of the folks promoting the Shen Yun show feel that this is something really they want to share culturally with the world. And so there's a lot of enthusiasm, hence a lot of billboards.
Flyers everywhere. Well, what I found interesting is because when the report came out, we covered it on China Uncensored. And, the tagline of Shen Yun is China before communism. And a lot of people were saying at the episode, oh, Shen Yun's against communism? Awesome. I'm going to go.
You mean people in the comments?
Yeah, people in the comments section.
Yeah, I did see a lot of people saying they thought it was a CCP show, which I was actually surprised about.
Yeah. I mean, China before communism. Are you guys?
Seems clear.
It seems clear. Have you thought about doing some rebranding to sort of, upfront the anti-communist message?
Well, I don't know. That didn't come up when I was sort of talking with the Shen Yun folks and doing some research. I mean, I did get to look at one of the things we did when we were doing this report is Shen Yun let us look at a lot of the comments they get on their social media. We studied a lot of the interviews. A lot of times after they do a show, they'll do interviews with people who just saw the show, just say, hey, what did you think? What did you just see? And so we got to sort of go through that. And I was still surprised by, not after the show, people are clear on what it was, but the comments on social media that people make sometimes before they've gone to the show or before they've seen it. There is still a percentage there that are sort of like, you commies, go back to China. And so it is interesting that that's still a confusion. I guess people don't see the tagline or don't fully understand.
It's ironic because, the other side of it is people are like, oh, you're a bunch of commies. And the other people are like, oh, you're a bunch of Falun Gong.
You're not a bunch of commies. How dare you? Well, I think this is actually part of, I think, what the CCP does with their propaganda is try to conflate Chinese culture so much with the Chinese Communist Party and things like, there is without the Communist Party, there is no new China, and using culture as a way to, get government officials to come to events sponsored by the Chinese consulates I'm not surprised in a certain sense that people, when they think of Chinese culture, they automatically think of the Chinese government because the Chinese government has used culture as the propaganda tool for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we see that actually is, we studied a bunch of different cases of Chinese diplomats going after Shen Yun in probably over 38 countries. And one of the key things that they do is they first target the theater managers because these guys don't know. They run a theater. They're not used to having a government come in and sort of manhandle them and say, oh, you can't do this, and scare them about what Shen Yun is and the nature of Shen Yun. But if you look at a lot of those letters, the content of what their sort of strong-arm tactics are, these billboards, having Shen Yun at your theater, this is really going to be offensive to the Chinese tourists and the Chinese business people, as if showcasing Chinese culture, as Shen Yun does, is an affront to all Chinese people. And it's sort of the exact same tactic I think you're talking about, Shelley, is they really try and not just blur the lines, but co-opt themselves as the true shepherds of Chinese culture and the Chinese people. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there is also the degree that sometimes overseas Chinese people do seem to be offended when you talk about Falun Gong stuff, or when they see like a Falun Gong, I don't know, table or something at a fair, that kind of thing. Right. So there is that sort of cohort of overseas Chinese that do feel offended by it. Why is that?
Well, I think you'd sort of have to break that down. I think my sense is that there's going to be a certain percentage of those, perhaps large percentage, that deep down inside they're not offended. They know what the party line is and they want to toe that, and especially if they can make a public display of that. And there's pressure to do that. So I think there's certainly an amount of people that coming from China that are like, oh, I know what the party line is on Falun Gong here. Let me articulate that, or let me act that out. But then there's also a significant portion that are genuine because all they've heard for the last 25 years from the state-run media is Falun Gong's evil, they kill people, they eat their babies, who knows what all kinds of stuff that they say. And, I think everybody thinks that propaganda doesn't work on them. They're a little bit, most people think they can rise above that. And one of the things I've learned after 25 years of watching what the CCP does to Falun Gong is it works on everybody eventually.
Except for you.
Except for me. And so you have even very sort of well-educated, very intelligent people coming out of China that will spew things that are clear lies, clearly stuff that's debunked about Falun Gong, but they actually believe that just because it's been reiterated so many times and in various nuances, different ways through the state-run media. So you do have people that are like that. For
yeah,
sure.
I mean, it's like I occasionally meet people who have just recently come overseas from China and they don't know anything about the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Well, again, I think that's interesting because I remember seeing a documentary where they sat down with 6, 7 Chinese students and they showed them the tank man. And they all said, oh, I don't know what that is. This was 15 years ago. And, I think the people doing the documentary understood that, well, either they know what it is and they don't want to say, or perhaps they don't know what it is. There's definitely a mix of those two.